Alright, so this lesson is completing the square, which we did in the first unit, and now we're going to graph it. There's actually quite an interesting thing that happens when we complete the square. We can find the vertex once we've done that. So we're going to look at 3 examples. First one's a monic, the next 2 are non-monics, and hopefully that helps us. Okay, let's get straight into it. So we're going to complete the square and graph. So if we remember from completing the square, we just look at this term and we sort of forget about this term for the moment, okay? And I should include the plus 3, so I'll circle that, okay? Let's go straight to the square. So I'm going to go x, and because it's a negative, minus 2, so we're always going to have this middle term here, and then I've got to complete the square, and then I'm always going to take away that number squared. So 2 squared, that's 4, okay? And now I'll bring this other guy down. I should call this f of x. F of x equals, now bring this guy down, so plus 3. So what I have is x minus 2 squared, and it'll be minus 1, okay? Now, at this point, it can tell us where the vertex is. I can say, therefore, vertex is at, and it will be 2 minus 1, okay? Now, where does that come from? It comes from the opposite of this symbol, so the opposite of minus 2 is 2, and then whatever this is, and that's minus 1. So hopefully you can see that, okay? So I'm just going to repeat that one more time. It'll be the opposite of this number here, so the opposite of minus 2 is positive 2, and then it'll be this number here, minus 1. I'll just show you on Desmos that that's there. I've drawn it there, and if I'm going to click down here on the graph, the vertex, notice it's 2 minus 1. So the really good thing about completing the square is that it gives us the graph straight away. Now, obviously we can find roots as well. We have to make f of x 0, so let f of x equals 0, and we get this thing, so x minus 2 squared minus 1 equals 0, and then we just go x minus 2 squared equals 1, therefore x equals, if we square root both sides, it's going to equal, I'm going to put an extra step here, that's going to be x minus 2 equals 1. So we've square rooted both sides, and this is plus or minus 1. So one answer will be x equals 1, and the other answer will be x equals minus 1, I'm pretty sure. And let's just check if that's the case here. 1 is there, and 3, I'm obviously doing wrong maths. So, yeah, it will be 3, because, let's do this properly, I'm going to put a line down here. If I can do things properly, let's do a line here. So, let's go back to this. Plus or minus 1, and I'll do the x bit. So that means that x equals, and we're just going to follow, I'm going to use a highlight again, 1, positive 1, plus 2, because we're moving it to this side, and that will be 3, okay? And then let's look at the negative 1, minus 1, and we add 2, because we're moving it to that side of the equation, and we get 1, which is one of the answers that we had there. Alright, so let's draw that on the graph. So we've got 1, 3, and we know our vertex is where? At 2 minus 1, so that's 2 minus 1 will be there. And we know that the y-intercept is positive 3, which is here. And now we can draw a really beautiful graph. I'm going to try draw as best I can. And there we go. Okay, so completing the square, the main thing is that we can find its vertex, which is really, really good. And we're going to move on from there. All right, now let's look at this one. Now this is a non-monic because it's got a minus there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it f of x equals, because it's a function. And then what I have to do is to complete the square, we always have to have a situation like we had in the previous slide where x squared has to be positive. So I'm going to make that fit. Now look at what I'm doing. I'm going to go minus and then put square brackets. Now this is my preference. And I'm going to put square brackets and I'm going to put +1 outside of that. So this guy and this guy are the same thing. Okay, now I'm going to show all my work now. X squared, almost don't need that. I'm going to go x squared minus 4x. Okay, now I'm going to complete the square inside these square brackets. So minus, I'm going to go straight to the square, x minus 2, because it's half of that term squared. And then I'm going to go minus that term squared, which is 4. And then I'm going to go +1. Now the reason I've written it like this is that you actually have to ski jump now. So I'm going to use the red pen, minus times that, minus times this term. So what do we get? We get minus just in front of these brackets. That makes sense. That's the first ski jump. And then that second minus means that it's going to be +4 +1, which equals minus x minus 2 squared plus 5. All right. Now we know the vertex. Therefore, vertex at, and we'll go 2, +5. Okay. Remember, it's always opposite that, and that's the case there. And then it's the same as that, and that's what we have there. Now let's check on Desmos if we've done it right. So we're looking for a vertex at 2, 5. So let's go there. And we've got a vertex at 2, +5. So there you go. Now we can go and find the roots if we want to. We know where the y-intercept is going to be at +1. All right, whatever the constant is, that we can do that. But I'm going to leave this example at this point, because if you want to solve for f of x equals 0, we did a whole lesson in the first unit, and we need to look at that next. Okay, let's do one more example. That's a non-monic as well. It's a non-monic because it's got a 2 in front of it. So I'm going to do the same thing, f of x equals, and then I'm going to use my square brackets. 2 square bracket x squared minus 6x, because I've taken 2 out of these first 2 terms. Plus 16 will be outside. So I've just brought this guy down here. And now I'm going to complete the square, but within the constraints of the square bracket. So I've got 2, and I've got x, and I'm going to go minus 3, because remember we're halving this term, squared. Now I'm going to minus that squared. Minus 3 squared, that's 9. Okay. Now close my square brackets, plus 16. Now in this case, it's even more important to ski jump. So I'm going to ski jump here and ski jump here. So what do I get? I get 2 bracket x minus 3 squared. And now minus 18 plus 16. Now I can group like terms. So I'll get f of x is equal to 2 bracket x minus 3 squared minus 2. Therefore, vertex at, and it's going to be opposite this, 3, and this term there, minus 2. All right, and let's just quickly check that we're correct. So I've got that graph there, and what are we looking for? 3 minus 2. And let's just double check that we've got it right, and we do. We have that right there. All right, so be really careful, especially in this step over here, and here with the square brackets, because it's going to make a huge difference. If we don't put this minus 9 inside the square brackets, we're not going to get the right answer here. Okay? Hopefully this helps. Peace out.